The UES Perseverance hung in orbit above Earth, its once gleaming hull now marked with scars from 2 decades of service. The ship had never been the pride of the United Earth Space Fleet. It was simply a workhorse, reliable but unexceptional. And now, like an old horse put out to pasture, it was slated for decommissioning. Captain James Reed stood at the viewport of his quarters, looking out at the blue marble of Earth. At 53, he felt a kinship with his vessel. They were both considered past their prime by the young admirals who now commanded the fleet. His weathered face reflected in the glass, the gray at his temples matching the worn metal of his ship. "Captain, to the bridge," came the voice over the intercom, interrupting his thoughts. When Reed arrived at the bridge, his first officer, Tom Miller, was waiting. Miller was 35, tall and serious, one of the few crew members who had requested to stay with the Perseverance despite better opportunities elsewhere. "Incoming transmission from Fleet Command, sir," Miller said, standing at attention. "On screen," Reed ordered, settling into the captain's chair that had molded to his form over the years. Admiral Watson's stern face appeared on the main display. She was one of the new generation of leaders, brilliant and efficient, with little patience for sentiment. "Captain Reed," she began without preamble, "there's been a change of plans. Before the Perseverance is decommissioned, you have one final mission." Reed raised an eyebrow, but remained silent. "You're to transport a group of scientific personnel to Outpost Delta for rotation. It's a milk run, Captain, straight there and back, after which you'll proceed with the decommissioning as scheduled." "Understood, Admiral," Reed replied, hiding his disappointment at such a mundane final assignment. "There's one more thing," Watson continued, her expression shifting slightly. "Due to budget constraints, we're reassigning most of your crew immediately. You'll be operating with a skeleton crew for this mission." Reed frowned. "How skeleton are we talking, Admiral?" "You'll be receiving 20 new crew members, transfers from various posts. That should give you the minimum required to operate safely." After the transmission ended, Miller looked at Reed with concern. "Skeleton crew for a milk run. Seems excessive even for the budget hawks." Reed tapped his fingers on the armrest. "And who are these transfers?" "Usually, no one volunteers for a ship headed to the scrapyard." 3 days later, Reed understood exactly what kind of crew he had been assigned. They were the misfits of the fleet, brilliant but problematic officers who had clashed with authority, bucked regulations, or simply didn't fit the increasingly corporate structure of the United Earth Space Fleet. Lisa Walker, his new chief engineer, had been demoted twice for modifying equipment without authorization, despite the fact that her modifications had worked brilliantly. Mike Torres, now his tactical officer, had been passed over for promotion 3 times because of his unorthodox strategic ideas that contradicted fleet doctrine. The ship's doctor, Anna Ray, had a reputation for prioritizing patience over paperwork, earning her transfers from one post to another. Reed called them all to the ship's conference room, studying their faces as they assembled. Some looked defeated, others defiant, but all showed signs of having been ground down by a system that valued conformity over creativity. "I've reviewed all your files," Reed said once they were all seated, "and I know why you're here. Each of you is considered a problem by someone up the chain of command." The room remained silent, but Reed caught several exchanged glances. "I don't care about any of that," he continued. "This is the Perseverance's final mission, and my last command. All I care about is completing our assignment competently. If you can do your jobs, your past doesn't matter to me." Walker, a compact woman with quick eyes, spoke up. "Permission to speak freely, Captain." Reed nodded. "This ship is outdated, running on systems 2 generations behind the current fleet standard. I've been reviewing the maintenance logs. It'll take some creativity just to keep her functioning properly for this mission." "Then be creative, Chief," Reed replied with a slight smile. "That's why you're here, isn't it? Because you don't do things by the book." For the first time, something like hope flickered across Walker's face. Over the next 2 days, the small crew worked to prepare the Perseverance for departure. Reed was impressed despite himself. These officers might have been rejects in the eyes of the fleet, but they knew their jobs. Walker had already improved engine efficiency by 8% with modifications that definitely weren't in any official manual. Torres had recalibrated the outdated weapon systems to perform nearly as well as newer models. The ship was scheduled to depart in 12 hours when the message came through. "Captain, emergency transmission from Outpost Gamma," called out Communications Officer Ben Park, his voice tense. "They're under attack." Reed rushed to the bridge where the rest of the command crew was already gathering. "Put it on screen." The transmission was fragmented, breaking up with static, but the message was clear enough. Outpost Gamma, one of the frontier colonies, was under attack by forces identifying as the Dominion, an aggressive coalition of 3 alien species that had been expanding their territory at the expense of any worlds in their path. "Request immediate assistance," said the colonial governor, fear evident in his voice. "They've landed ground forces and have orbital superiority. Civilian casualties air." The transmission cut off. Reed turned to his communications officer. "Contact Fleet Command immediately." After a brief conversation with Admiral Watson, Reed's expression darkened. "What's the word, sir?" Miller asked. "The main response fleet is 3 days out at best speed," Reed replied. "Command has ordered us to remain in orbit and await the arrival of battle-ready vessels." 3 days, Torres exclaimed. "Gamma will be overrun by then. There are 10,000 civilians on that outpost." Reed looked around at his crew of misfits and his aging, obsolete ship. Fleet regulations were clear. The Perseverance wasn't classified for frontline combat operations anymore. Engaging with enemy forces would be a direct violation of orders. He thought of all the times he had followed orders throughout his career, of the growing rigidity of the fleet, and of the lives hanging in the balance. "Mr. Miller, set course for Outpost Gamma, maximum speed," Reed said, settling into his captain's chair with new purpose. Miller hesitated for just a moment. "Sir, that contradicts Fleet Command's direct order." Reed met his first officer's gaze steadily. "I'm aware of that, Mr. Miller. Are you refusing the order?" A slow smile spread across Miller's face. "No, sir. Setting course for Outpost Gamma." As the Perseverance broke orbit and accelerated toward the jump point, Reed knew this would be his last command one way or another. But perhaps, just perhaps, this obsolete ship and its crew of rejects might make a difference before they were done. No one feared the UES Perseverance. It had never been the fastest, the strongest, or the most advanced vessel in the fleet. But as it leaped into faster-than-light travel on a collision course with the Dominion forces, that was about to change. The UES Perseverance dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Gamma system. The bridge crew tensed as the main view screen displayed the scene before them. "Tactical assessment, Mr. Torres," Captain Reed ordered, his voice steady despite the sight of 3 large Dominion warships orbiting the small colony world. Torres' fingers flew across his console. 3 heavy cruisers in orbit, sir. They're deploying landing craft to the surface. Colony defenses are minimal. They've already lost their orbital platform." "Life signs on the surface?" Reed asked. Dr. Ray checked her readings. Multiple human life signs, concentrated in the main settlement, and moving toward the emergency shelters. Dominion forces are spreading out from 3 landing zones. Reed nodded grimly. "They don't know we're here yet. Let's keep it that way." He turned to his first officer. "Mr. Miller, I want us to approach from behind the planet's moon. We'll use it for cover." "Sir," Torres interjected, "even with the element of surprise, we can't take on 3 Dominion cruisers. The Perseverance isn't built for that kind of fight." "I'm aware of our limitations, Mr. Torres," Reed replied. "We're not here to win a battle. We're here to save lives." He looked around at his crew. "Our priority is evacuating as many colonists as possible." As the Perseverance maneuvered behind Gamma's moon, Reed called his senior officers to the tactical room. The holographic display showed the colony and the Dominion positions. "The colony has 3 emergency shelters here, here, and here," Reed pointed. Each has a landing pad large enough for our shuttles. We'll send all 4 of our shuttles down in rotation while the Perseverance creates a distraction." "What kind of distraction can we create that won't get us destroyed?" Miller asked. Lisa Walker, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward. "Captain, I've been studying the Dominion ships. Their systems are highly advanced, more integrated than ours. But that might be a weakness." She tapped controls on the display, highlighting the enemy ship's communication arrays. "They rely heavily on constant data exchange between ships. If we could disrupt that, even briefly, it might create enough confusion for our shuttles to get in and out." Reed looked at her with interest. "How do you propose we do that, Chief?" Walker smiled for the first time since coming aboard. "Our outdated communication system operates on frequencies the Dominion doesn't use anymore. They won't be scanning for them. We can use our main communication array to blast interference across their coordination channels." "Will that work?" Miller asked doubtfully. "In theory," Walker replied. "But we'll need to get close." Reed considered this. "Close enough to be a target?" "Yes, sir." Reed made his decision. "We'll approach from behind the moon, broadcasting the interference. Once their ships show signs of confusion, we'll launch the shuttles. Mr. Torres, I want you to prepare some surprises to keep their attention on us and away from our shuttles." Torres grinned. "I have a few ideas, Captain." 4 hours later, the plan was in motion. The Perseverance emerged from behind the moon, broadcasting focused interference that scrambled the Dominion ship's coordination. As predicted, the enemy vessels responded with momentary confusion, their movements becoming uncoordinated. "Shuttles away," Miller reported as the 4 evacuation craft launched toward the planet's surface. "Now, Mr. Torres," Reed ordered, "keep their attention on us." Torres initiated his surprises, a series of modified probes that mimicked weapons signatures, creating phantom targets for the Dominion ships to track. On the surface, the shuttle teams worked frantically to evacuate colonists from the emergency shelters. Dominion ground forces had already reached the outskirts of the settlement, and the sound of weapons fire could be heard in the distance. Lieutenant Kelly Adams, leading the ground team, directed colonists into the shuttles. "Move quickly. Women and children first, then the elderly." A young colony security officer approached her. "The Dominion forces are getting closer. They'll be here in minutes." Adams nodded. "Hold them off as long as you can. We'll need 3 more shuttle runs to get everyone." Back in orbit, the Perseverance was dancing a dangerous ballet with the Dominion cruisers. Reed had ordered the ship to make seemingly random maneuvers while continuing to broadcast interference. "They're adapting to our jamming," Walker reported from engineering. "I'm changing frequencies, but it won't fool them for long." "Shuttle 1 returning with evacuees," Miller announced. "Shuttles 2 and 3 are still loading. Shuttle 4 is en route back to the surface for a second run." Reed gripped the arms of his chair as a near miss from a Dominion energy weapon rocked the ship. "Damage report." "Minor damage to the outer hull," Walker replied. "Shields holding at 78%. "Sir," Torres called out urgently, "one of the Dominion ships is breaking off to investigate the shuttle activity." Reed thought quickly. "Mr. Torres, target their propulsion systems. Fire when ready." The Perseverance's outdated weapons shouldn't have posed much threat to the advanced Dominion vessel, but Torres had spent the previous day recalibrating and modifying them specifically to target known weaknesses in Dominion shielding. The shots hit with surprising effectiveness, causing the enemy ship to veer off course. "Direct hit," Torres exclaimed with surprise in his voice. "Their port thrusters are damaged." For the next 2 hours, the Perseverance continued its dangerous game, drawing fire while the shuttles worked to evacuate as many colonists as possible. The ship took multiple hits, and damage reports flowed in from all sections. "Final shuttle approaching," Miller reported, his uniform stained with smoke from a console fire that had been extinguished minutes earlier. They crammed in as many as they could, but they had to leave some behind. Reed's face hardened at this news. "How many?" About 200 colonists couldn't be evacuated, Miller replied grimly. Mostly colony defense forces who stayed behind to cover the retreat. As the final shuttle docked, the Dominion ships coordinated their attack, their systems having finally adapted to the Perseverance's interference. All 3 cruisers are moving to cut off our escape route, Torres warned. Maximum power to engines, Reed ordered. Set course for the jump point. As the Perseverance accelerated away from the planet, the crew worked to tend to the nearly 800 evacuees now crowded into every available space on the ship. In his ready room, Reed received a troubling report from Dr. Ray. Among the evacuees was a colonial intelligence officer who had managed to recover data about Dominion fleet movements. "Captain," the intelligence officer said, her face grave, "the attack on Gamma was just the beginning. The Dominion is assembling an Armada, over 50 ships. They're planning a full-scale invasion of human space." Reed stared at the data. "Have you transmitted this to Fleet Command?" The woman shook her head. "All long-range communications are being jammed. Your ship is the only warning Earth has." Reed looked out his viewport at the streaking stars as the Perseverance fled at maximum speed. Behind them, the 3 Dominion cruisers were in pursuit. Ahead lay an uncertain path to Earth with vital information that could save billions of lives. The UEA's Perseverance, old, damaged, and overcrowded, had just become humanity's most important ship. "We've lost them," Torres announced with relief as the Perseverance emerged from its 3rd random jump in 6 hours. The tactical officer's shoulders plumped with exhaustion, but a small smile played on his lips. Captain Reed nodded. "Good work. Now we need to decide our next move." He looked around at his senior officers gathered in the conference room. The strain of the past 24 hours showed on every face. "We have to get back to Earth with this intelligence," Miller said, gesturing to the data they'd received from the colonial officer. "The fleet needs to know about the Dominion Armada. If we head straight for Earth, the Dominion ships will likely intercept us," Reed replied. "We're not fast enough to outrun them on a direct course." Lisa Walker, who had been studying the star charts, looked up. "Captain, I have another idea. What if we don't run from the Armada? What if we follow it instead?" The room fell silent as all eyes turned to the engineer. "Explain," Reed said after a moment. Walker pointed to the star map. "Based on the intelligence report, the Dominion Armada is gathering here, at these coordinates. If we can get close enough to observe them without being detected, we might learn more about their plans, possibly find a weakness. We might even be able to get a message to Earth through back channels." "That's insanely risky," Miller objected. "One old ship against an entire Armada." "Not against them," Walker corrected. "Near them. The Perseverance has one advantage. It's considered obsolete. The Dominion's advanced scanning systems are calibrated to detect current-generation human ships. Our older power signature and communication systems might register as background noise or minor anomalies." Reed considered this. "So we could potentially shadow the Armada undetected." "It's possible," Walker said. "Not certain, but possible." Torres leaned forward, his tactical mind engaged. "If we could get close enough, we might be able to gather detailed information about their fleet composition, weaknesses, maybe even their attack plans." Reed looked at each officer in turn, weighing the enormous risk against the potential reward. Finally, he nodded. "Set course for the Dominion gathering point. Maximum stealth protocols." 3 days later, the Perseverance lurked at the edge of a dense asteroid field, its systems powered down to minimal levels. Through the main view screen, the crew stared in silent horror at the Dominion Armada. 67 ships, Torres whispered, reading from his tactical display. 23 heavy cruisers, 32 destroyers, 5 carriers with fighter squadrons, and 7 support vessels. "If that force reaches Earth, the fleet won't stand a chance," Miller said grimly. Reed turned to Walker. "Status of our detection measures." "So far, we're registering as a minor electromagnetic anomaly," she replied. I've modified our hull plating to absorb most of their scanning frequencies. As long as we stay among these asteroids and keep power levels low, we should remain undetected. For the next 2 days, the crew of the Perseverance meticulously cataloged everything they could about the Dominion fleet. Torres noted weapons capabilities and defensive systems. Walker analyzed their power signatures and communication frequencies. Dr. Ray even studied what little they could determine about Dominion biology from long-range scans. In engineering, Walker made a discovery that changed everything. "Captain, you need to see this," she called over the comm system, her voice tight with excitement. When Reed arrived in engineering, Walker was hunched over a workstation, surrounded by complex energy pattern analyses. "I've been studying the Dominion ship's power distribution," she explained. "Their systems are incredibly advanced, integrated neural networks that process data at speeds our computers can't match. But they're also incredibly sensitive to certain types of electromagnetic interference." "Like the interference we used at Gamma?" Reed asked. "Similar, but more targeted," Walker replied. "Their ships communicate using quantum entanglement channels, almost impossible to jam using conventional methods. But their systems have to translate those quantum signals into commands for mechanical systems." She pointed to a specific energy pattern on her screen. "That translation happens at this frequency range. And guess what? The Perseverance's old fusion drive, when operating at 87% capacity, produces harmonic resonance waves that interfere with exactly that range." Reed's eyes widened as he understood the implications. "You're saying our outdated drive system could disrupt their ship functions?" "Not just disrupt," Walker said with a growing smile. "In theory, it could temporarily paralyze them. They'd lose coordination between their neural networks and physical systems for maybe 30 seconds before their automatic compensation kicks in." 30 seconds could be enough time to get a shot in, Reed mused. "Or escape if needed," Walker added. Reed was about to respond when the ship's alarm blared. He rushed back to the bridge. "Dominion scout ship," Torres reported as Reed entered. "It's conducting a sweep of the asteroid field. Current trajectory will bring it within direct visual range in 3 minutes. "Options," Reed demanded. "We can try to move deeper into the asteroid field," Miller suggested, "but the engine power required might give away our position. Or we can hold position and hope their sensors don't pick us up," Torres added. Reed made his decision. "Neither. Mr. Torres, power up weapons. Target their engines only." "Sir?" Miller questioned, surprised. "If they detect us, the entire Armada will know we're here," Reed explained. "We need to take them out quickly and completely. Walker's discovery gives us a chance." He opened a channel to engineering. "Chief, I need you to bring the drive to exactly 87% power when I give the word. Focus the harmonic output through the forward deflector." "Ready when you are, Captain," Walker replied. The bridge crew watched tensely as the Dominion scout ship grew larger on the view screen, methodically scanning the asteroid field. "It's changing course," Torres reported suddenly. "Coming directly toward us. I think they've detected something." Reed leaned forward in his chair. "Steady. Wait for my mark." The scout ship approached, its sleek, predatory form now clearly visible. "They're powering up weapons," Torres warned. "Now, Chief," Reed ordered. The Perseverance's engines hummed to life at precisely 87% power. Walker channeled the harmonic resonance through the forward deflector, directing it like a beam at the approaching scout. The effect was immediate and startling. The Dominion ship suddenly drifted, its lights flickering. Its weapons powered down mid-charge. "Fire," Reed commanded. Torres launched a precisely targeted shot that struck the scout's engine section. The hit was perfect, disabling the ship without destroying it. "Their systems are offline," Torres reported with amazement. No distress signal was sent. A cheer erupted on the bridge, quickly silenced by Reed's raised hand. "This confirms Walker's theory," he said. "We have a weapon the Dominion isn't prepared for." He looked around at his crew, determination in his eyes. "And we're going to use it. As the disabled scout drifted powerless through space, the crew of the Perseverance began to realize something extraordinary. Their obsolete ship, the vessel no one had feared, might be the only one capable of stopping the Dominion Armada. The senior officers of the Perseverance gathered around the tactical display in the conference room. The holographic image showed the Dominion Armada, a massive collection of warships now moving in formation toward human space. "They've begun their advance," Reed said, his voice grave. "At their current speed, they'll reach the outer colonies in 36 hours. Earth Fleet Headquarters won't be able to gather enough ships in time. We need to slow them down," Miller stated, saying what everyone was thinking. Reed nodded. "Exactly. We can't stop them alone, but if we can delay their progress, give the fleet time to organize a proper defense." He let the thought hang in the air. Torres leaned forward, studying the display. The Armada is staying in tight formation. Their front ships are scanning for threats, but their rear guard is lighter than I'd expect. Walker, who had spent the last 12 hours refining her harmonic resonance theory, spoke up. "Captain, I've been working on expanding our disruptive capabilities. I think I can modify our main deflector to broadcast the harmonic resonance in a wider pattern. It won't be as effective as a focused beam, but it could affect multiple ships at once." "How many?" Reed asked. 3, maybe 4 if they're close together," Walker replied. "But it will put enormous strain on our power systems. We'd only get 1 or 2 bursts before we'd need to reset." Reed considered this information. "We need to make those bursts count." He pointed to an area ahead of the Armada's path. "What about this nebula? Could it help us?" Torres examined the region. The Kelnar Nebula. Dense ionized gases, magnetic disturbances. It would interfere with sensors on both sides. But his eyes lit up with understanding. The Dominion's integrated systems would suffer more than our older tech. It's the same principle as Walker's resonance discovery. They'll have to pass through or around it. Reed noted, "If we could lure some of their ships into the nebula, we'd have the advantage," Torres finished. "Their advanced targeting systems would be nearly useless, while our manual targeting could still function." A plan began to take shape. The Perseverance would reveal itself just enough to draw a portion of the Dominion fleet into the nebula, where Walker's harmonic disruption could be deployed to maximum effect. With luck, they could disable enough ships to create a blockage, forcing the Armada to alter course or slow down to clear the path. "It's risky," Miller cautioned. "If too many ships follow us in, or if the harmonic disruption doesn't work as expected, we'll be destroyed," Reed acknowledged. "But if we do nothing, billions of lives are at stake." The vote was unanimous. They would take the chance. 6 hours later, the Perseverance positioned itself at the edge of the Kelnar Nebula. Power systems at minimal levels except for a deliberately leaky communication signal, just enough to catch the attention of the Dominion's forward scouts. "They've detected us," Torres reported from Tactical. 2 destroyer-class vessels are breaking formation to investigate." Reed nodded calmly. "Let them get a good look, then take us into the nebula. Slow enough that they think they can catch us." The Perseverance glided into the multicolored gases of the nebula, the pursuing Dominion ships following exactly as hoped. As soon as they entered the dense clouds, their sensors began to struggle. "They're still following, but they've slowed," Torres reported. "They're having trouble tracking us." "Good. How many ships are following now?" Reed asked. Torres checked his readings. 4 destroyers, and a heavy cruiser has joined the hunt. Reed couldn't suppress a small smile. "Better than we expected. Take us deeper, to the coordinates we selected." The Perseverance navigated through the nebula using old-fashioned stellar navigation techniques that had been programmed into the ship's computers decades ago. The Dominion ships, reliant on their advanced sensors, moved more cautiously through the colorful fog. When they reached the designated position, a particularly dense pocket of the nebula, Reed gave the order. "Battle stations. Prepare the harmonic burst." Walker's voice came over the comm from engineering. "Harmonic resonator charged and ready, Captain." We'll get 2 bursts at most before the system overheats." "Understood. On my mark," Reed replied. "Mr. Torres, target the lead destroyer with conventional weapons. Fire as soon as their systems are disrupted." The bridge crew tensed as the shapes of the Dominion ships became visible through the nebula, their sleek forms distorted by the colorful gases. "Now," Reed ordered. The Perseverance unleashed the harmonic burst, broadcasting the precise frequency that interfered with the Dominion ship's neural networks. The effect was immediate. All 5 enemy vessels slowed to a drift, their systems temporarily paralyzed. "Fire," Reed commanded. Torres launched a precisely targeted barrage at the lead destroyer's propulsion system. The shots connected perfectly, causing a cascade of secondary explosions along the ship's engine section. "Direct hit," Torres reported. "Their engines are offline." But the victory was short-lived. As predicted, the Dominion ship's systems began to recover after 30 seconds. "Second burst ready," Walker reported. "Hold," Reed ordered. "Let's see what they do first." The remaining Dominion ships, now aware of their vulnerability, began to spread out, making it impossible to catch all of them in a single burst. But something unexpected happened. The disabled lead destroyer, now drifting without control, collided with one of its companions. Both ships' emergency systems activated, filling the nebula with distress signals. Reed saw the opportunity. "Mr. Miller, take us behind that cruiser. Chief Walker, prepare for focused burst on my mark." The Perseverance maneuvered through the nebula with surprising agility for an older vessel. When they emerged behind the Dominion cruiser, Reed didn't hesitate. Now, the second harmonic burst hit the cruiser directly. As its systems froze, Torres fired every weapon they had at its engine section. The cruiser's reactor containment failed, causing a massive explosion that damaged 2 nearby destroyers. "Get us out of here, maximum speed," Reed ordered as debris scattered throughout the nebula. As the Perseverance escaped from the nebula, the crew watched in amazement at what they had accomplished. 3 Dominion ships disabled or destroyed, 2 more damaged, and the nebula now filled with wreckage and radiation that would force the Armada to detour around it. "We've bought the fleet maybe 10 hours, Torres estimated. "Not enough," Reed said grimly. "We need to do more." He studied the tactical display showing the main Armada, his mind working on an even bolder plan. "Sir," Miller said hesitantly, "what are you thinking?" Reed looked up, determination etched on his face. "Their command ship. If we could disable or destroy it, the entire Armada would be thrown into confusion." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. "That's not just risky, Captain," Miller finally said. "It's suicide." Reed's expression didn't change. "I'm not asking anyone to volunteer. I'll take a shuttle myself if necessary." "How would you even get aboard their command ship?" Torres asked. Reed's eyes returned to the display. "They have a weakness we haven't exploited yet. Their overconfidence. They think we're just one obsolete ship. They don't know what we're capable of." As the Perseverance raced away from the nebula, Reed outlined his audacious plan. A plan so dangerous and unlikely that it just might work. A plan that would take them directly into the heart of the Dominion Armada. "This is insane," Miller said, checking his environment suit one last time. Beside him, Reed, Torres, and Walker did the same. The 4 officers were crammed into the Perseverance's smallest shuttle, modified by Walker to mask its energy signature. "Insane, yes," Reed agreed with a grim smile. "But they won't expect it. No one would." The plan was audacious beyond reason. The shuttle would approach the Dominion command ship using debris from their earlier battle as cover. Once close enough, they would attach to the command ship's hull near a maintenance hatch that Torres had identified from their scans. Using Walker's harmonic device, now miniaturized into a portable unit, they would create a localized disruption, opening the hatch without triggering alarms. From there, they would make their way to the ship's central coordination hub and plant specially designed devices that would broadcast the harmonic disruption throughout the entire command vessel. If successful, it would paralyze the ship's systems long enough for the Perseverance to target its main communication array. Remember, Reed said to the team, "Our goal isn't to destroy their command ship. It's to disable their ability to coordinate the Armada." The shuttle launched, its engines barely more than a whisper as Walker's modifications kept its signature minimal. Behind them, the Perseverance retreated to a safe distance, ready to spring into action once the team completed their mission. For 40 tense minutes, the shuttle drifted among the debris field, slowly approaching the massive Dominion command ship. It was unlike anything the humans had seen before, nearly a kilometer long, with a design that seemed to blend organic and mechanical elements. "We're in position," Miller whispered, though there was no reason to keep his voice down in the vacuum of space. Walker activated her device as they attached to the hull. The small section of the ship's exterior went dark, systems temporarily offline. Torres quickly attached a breaching tool to the maintenance hatch, and within moments, they were inside. The interior of the Dominion ship was eerily beautiful, corridors lined with what looked like living circuitry, pulsing with energy and information. The team moved quickly, using Walker's scanner to avoid patrols. "The coordination hub should be 2 levels up," Torres said, consulting the small display on his wrist. They encountered only 2 Dominion crew members, tall insectoid beings that moved with unsettling grace. Each time, Walker's device gave them just enough disruption to slip past unnoticed. When they reached the coordination hub, however, they found it heavily guarded. 6 Dominion soldiers stood watch outside the sealed doorway. "We need a distraction," Reed whispered. Torres reached into his pack and pulled out a small device. "Remote harmonic emitter. I can place it down that corridor. When activated, it should draw them away." The distraction worked perfectly. As the guards rushed to investigate the strange energy readings, the team slipped into the coordination hub, a vast chamber filled with holographic displays showing the position of every ship in the Armada. 30 seconds, Walker warned as she began placing her devices around the room. "That's all the time we'll have once I activate the main disruptor." Reed nodded. Torres set the charges on the main communication relays. Miller watched the door. They worked with practiced efficiency, each knowing their role. When Walker gave the signal, they retreated to a service corridor just outside the hub. 3, 2, 1, Walker counted down, then pressed the activator. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The entire command ship seemed to shudder as systems throughout the vessel temporarily froze. Lights flickered, doors sealed or opened at random, and distant alarms began to wail. "Move," Reed ordered, and the team raced back toward their entry point, encountering confusion rather than resistance as the Dominion crew struggled to understand what was happening to their ship. They reached the maintenance hatch just as the ship's systems began to recover. Slipping back into their shuttle, they detached from the hull and drifted away, using the continuing chaos as cover. "Perseverance, this is Reed," the captain transmitted. "Phase 1 complete. Execute Phase 2. The Perseverance emerged from hiding, all weapons charged and targeting systems locked on the command ship's now identified communication array. With the command ship still recovering from the internal disruption, it was unable to coordinate an effective defense. The old ship fired everything it had at the precise weak point Torres had identified. The shots connected in a series of brilliant explosions that rippled across the command ship's hull. "Direct hit," came the excited voice of the officer left in command of the Perseverance. "Their main communication array is completely destroyed." As the shuttle raced back to the Perseverance, the crew watched in amazement as the effect of their attack spread throughout the Dominion Armada. Without the command ship's coordination, the tightly organized formation began to break down. Ships moved in conflicting patterns, some colliding, others firing on incorrect targets. "It's working better than we expected," Torres said in awe. "Their ships are so integrated that without central coordination, they can't function effectively as individual units." The Perseverance retrieved the shuttle and immediately set course away from the Armada, pushing its engines beyond safe limits. Behind them, the Dominion fleet had fallen into complete disarray. Message from Earth Fleet Command. The communications officer reported as they reached safe distance. They've picked up our emergency broadcasts. A response fleet is on the way. ETA 4 hours. When the Earth fleet arrived, they found an astonishing sight. The once mighty Dominion Armada scattered and in disorder. Several ships had been damaged in collisions, others had retreated, and the remainder were struggling to re-establish communication protocols. The Earth fleet, though smaller, engaged the disorganized enemy with devastating effect. Within hours, the Dominion forces had either been destroyed or had fled back to their own territory. 2 days later, the UES Perseverance docked at Earth's orbital station. As Reed and his crew stepped off the ship, they were met not with the retirement ceremony that had been planned, but with cheering crowds and a full honor guard. Admiral Watson, who had ordered them to stand down days earlier, was the first to greet them. "Captain Reed," she said, her usual stern expression replaced with one of respect. "Earth Fleet owes you and your crew a debt that can never be repaid." Reed shook his head. "The credit belongs to this ship and this crew, Admiral. They showed what can be accomplished when people are allowed to think creatively, even if it doesn't follow standard protocols." In the following weeks, the story of the Perseverance spread throughout human space. The ship that had been scheduled for decommissioning was instead given a complete refit, its unique capabilities now recognized as invaluable. The crew, once considered misfits and problematic officers, were celebrated as heroes and given their choice of assignments. Most chose to remain with the Perseverance, now under Reed's permanent command. 6 months later, as the Perseverance prepared for its first official mission as the flagship of a new rapid response fleet, Reed received a classified intelligence report. Dominion communications had been intercepted and translated. Among them was a new tactical directive: approach with extreme caution any human vessel matching the profile of UES Perseverance. Priority threat: avoid engagement if possible. Reed smiled as he read the report. The ship no one had feared had become the one ship the enemy feared above all others. And as he looked around at his crew, Walker, Torres, Miller, and all the others who had been rejected by a system that valued conformity over creativity, he knew this was just the beginning of their legend.